Well, everybody, welcome to The Subtle View. And I'm one of the co-hosts here at The Subtle View. My name is Larry Pesta, and I am a biogeometry practitioner, also a pranic healer, and also I do all kinds of other things that we won't get into. But I just want to welcome you here today. I'm one of the co-hosts of The Subtle View, along with Jean Menges, who I will be introducing in just a second. I just have a couple of announcements, little legal things I want to do. Nothing in this discussion today should be construed to constitute healthcare advice or medical diagnosis, treatment, or prescribing. We encourage you to seek the care of a licensed healthcare professional if you believe such care is required. Information or guidance provided here should not be construed as a promise of benefits, a claim of cures, or a guarantee of results to be achieved. We make no guarantees or warranties related to our discussion today or concerning our presentation. And also, we want to point out that BioGeometry Energy Systems Ltd is aware that we're having this discussion today. However, this is not a BioGeometry Energy Systems production. The opinions expressed today are not necessarily the positions and opinions held by biogeometry. And therefore, biogeometry is not responsible for the content here today. And I am going to introduce you to Jean Menges. And Jean is the co-host who is going to introduce our wonderful guest from Singapore today, who is Helen Ong, and she is a Feng Shui person who is also into biogeometry. And I know that's exciting to a lot of people tuning in today because this is a very cool thing that she's doing, as you'll find out shortly. Jean, I'll let you introduce Helen.
Hi everyone, I'm Jean Menges coming from New York City, and I have the pleasure of working with Larry and creating this Subtle View channel and inviting anyone who have brought their own expertise and have studied biogeometry and really combined us work together. And so a while ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Helen in Singapore when I was there. And I was very impressed with her background of what she already accomplished as a Feng Shui practitioner in the corporate world, working with business people, working with creating changes in homes. And you can read all about her background in Senses Live, which is her website. But what I was most impressed is what she has brought the combination of work and brought forth things that she could do with Feng Shui and when things that are not be able to achieve because of results, she was able to bring in biogeometry. And being someone who comes from a science background and research background, I was really impressed with the dedication that Helen has done in terms of research in both Feng Shui and biogeometry. So I would like you to introduce Helen Ong.
Olivia or? Okay. Hi everyone. I'm Helen Ong, and I've been doing Feng Shui for like the last 20 years. I started off as an interior designer. And being an interior designer, the most difficult job that you have when you're on the job for like 6 months and your client brought in a Feng Shui practitioner and say change. And, I got so fed up. I went to learn Feng Shui just to prove that this is rubbish. And then in the end, along the way, I found gems and I realized that, hey, that helped me a lot in my interior design work, and design become even more interesting. And then before I realized it, I am doing Feng Shui full time, and interior design now become like a secondary business. I only pick up an interior design job when the client has lots of money and I get a playground. And then over the years, like this thing about Feng Shui topic, I spend a lot of time going into the classical theories. I do my research work based on the classical texts, and I do attend conferences in China, alongside with many other masters who are very well known in China. And it gives me that opportunity to watch them do their sparring, and for me to gather my information and to be able to go under some very good tutorial under some very renowned scholars and teachers, for me to then understand further the classical text of what I have researched on and read. So I teach. So when I teach Feng Shui or I teach Bazi or I Ching, I do go back to the classical texts and translate them into English, so that I'm able to put it across the classroom for those who do not speak Chinese or read Chinese. They're then able, to understand and enjoy, the original text and its meaning and flavor. So this is the part about Feng Shui where I've enjoyed so much, even until today. It's never failed to amaze me on what Feng Shui could do. But what's interesting is Feng Shui discuss everything about what one can do in this mundane and material world. When you meet a client, the client always talk about where is my wealth spot, and how can I be rich and stuff like that. But the thing here is, other than that, we have many other issues that we're concerned about. What about the health? What about the well-being? When a person lives better and they're healthier, it is a lot easier for us to achieve what we want to achieve in life. But more than often, the client thinks that a Feng Shui master comes in just to help them to achieve the material aspect and to achieve that abundance that they're looking at, without thinking that there's still so much other foundation work, other primary work that one should actually look into, like their lifestyle, their habits, and the way they conduct their life. So these are the things that prompt me into thinking, and I went in search on this journey in wanting to find out how I could better explain the word energy, the word vibration, and the word frequency or the word energy to the client, if I want to make them understand what is the true nature, when one embraces Feng Shui. So yeah, so in general, this is what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to introduce also, Helen, give the opportunity, because you're going to be asked questions here. I want to give the opportunity to everybody else shortly to introduce themselves. Jean, we've already heard from you. Jan, tell us who you are so you can enter into the conversation here.
Hi, I'm Jan Walsh. Thank you, Larry and Jean, for inviting me. I see there are several schools of Feng Shui represented here, so it'll be interesting to see how that works with biogeometry. I've studied the BTB School of Feng Shui for about 20 years. And I came to it also like Helen from an interior design perspective. I was doing rearrangement, room redesign, and real estate staging, and discovered that I was actually doing Feng Shui and balancing spaces. I moved to Silicon Valley about 6 years ago and discovered that with all the electromagnetic fields, I really needed to learn more, and that led me to biogeometry. And I'm a licensed biogeometry practitioner now.
Great. Olivia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia Olkowski. I'm in New York for 40 years, and the last 20 years have been practicing shamanism, Feng Shui, and biogeometry for the last 4 or 5 years. And I find the combination of all my practices work very well in hand with each other. You can check yourself too. So my background was in advertising, and I found Feng Shui as looking into a new career. Little did I know that I had the ability to sense and feel energies, and then it brought me down the road of all these different trainings. I also do Mayan hands-on healing work and have been studying all the healing arts and energy arts of the earth and geomancy for 20 years here. My website, if you're interested, is spiritrockshamanichealing.com, based in New York.
Perfect. Thank you. And Marty. And hold on, Marty. I can make sure that you're, yeah, there you go.
So hello, everyone. I'm Marty Bergerud. I live in the Chicago area, in the USA. And, you know, I've always been interested in Chinese metaphysics. I've been practicing Tai Chi for 45 years. In 2003, I saw a book on in the bookstore, and it was by Lillian Tu, and it talked about flying star feng shui. And I said, oh my God, there's a low pan. I've always seen low pans. I didn't know what a low pan was at that point. So I was intrigued by all that. So I really did a deep dive into that. And what I did, I'm an engineer by training, and I'm also a software engineer, retired now. But I saw the difficulties that we were in, you know, rendering floor plans and the flying star charts. And so I created some software to do that. And so it's now online right now. So my claim to fame, I guess, in the Feng Shui world is that I have the flying star calculator online. It's fscalc.com. And it's very popular. A lot of people use it. It does the calculations, flying star calculations, eight mansions calculations. You can upload your own floor plan, and it'll render the chart over your floor plan. I also have a Google Maps interface that allows you to get the facing direction of the home. And the way it works is that I use, you know, Google Maps is like a perfect, it's always going to be true north. You can say, okay, true north. There's a difference between magnetic north and true north. And Feng Shui uses magnetic north. So I use a offset on the compass to, I query the NOAA website to get the magnetic, you know, where with the coordinates on the globe, and get the magnetic deviation there at that place on the globe. And then I'm able to adjust the compass, you know, to compensate for the magnetic north difference. And so I've been into Feng Shui for a long time, since 2003, and done a lot of work with families and friends, and then also people on my website will also ask questions, and I help them with that. And biogeometry, I've been at it for a couple of years now, and I find that biogeometry is very, very effective as far as it does the same things, in my mind, it does the same things as Feng Shui does, but in a different way. And I have questions for Helen about that in my observations, that maybe we can talk about those things later.
So thank you. Are we showing up here? Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I, have such a pleasure of meeting all of you guys. And even though my background, and which I didn't share before, I'm also a licensed acupuncturist and studying Chinese medicine. And I dabble in Feng Shui when I found out about it through the Chinese medicine. So at one point, Helen and I were just speaking, at one point I hired a Feng Shui master to come to my home, because I thought, why not? This is something that a lot of people are doing. It sounds very fascinating. So he came in and he was telling me about different elements of my home, that he wanted to put crystals here and wind chimes here, and which I was, coming from Chinese medicine, I understand those concepts of having to balance the elemental forces and things like that. However, my research, scientific background says, prove it to me, show it to me. So I was quite a skeptic. And so when Helen and I started speaking, I was quite impressed. Not only she, is a practitioner, but she's she questions, she asks the questions she wants to know, and the deeper, taking a big dive, like a deep dive, as every single one of you have. And then when you can't find that solution within the practice, even within myself as as a healthcare practitioner, when I can't find a solution for something, I start to look. And so I'm so impressed with every single one of you here that you have taken such a deep dive and then you went, you know what, there's more to this. And I think that's how biogeometry came along. But I would love for Helen to talk a little bit more about how, you know, biogeometry has really added dimension to Feng Shui. And I would love for each one of you who are experts in Feng Shui, which Larry and I are not, um, we're sort of consumers of Feng Shui, so we can, you know, hopefully be able to ask you questions from that perspective. And then we wanted to have the experts to take a deep dive with Helen.
Sure. So, my turn. Say.
Yes. Tell us.
Yeah. You know, the journey into constantly searching for answers to fill up the gaps or solutions to fill up the gaps has always been an ongoing thing. And as a Feng Shui practitioner, you get clients who have all sorts of issues. And sometimes, you know, I would say whether you're doing 8 mansions, you're doing flying stars, or you're looking at all the 8 types of quality of energy from the Hua, you know, when you're actually aligning the house. You can do anything, but if the external landscape does not support what you're doing, you know, it's just like you buy a computer, they didn't give you that power cable, nothing's gonna work. So we're looking at what we can harness, you know, from the external environment. And in today's landscape, we have more antennas, we have more cell towers, we have cities, living in the cities, we have shopping malls, we have train stations, there's so many things that's complicating the energy field. And all of this was never explained in the ancient classical texts. You know, like I say, in the good old days, the emperor doesn't use the Wi-Fi, and he was not on computer, he's not using the mobile phone. So there was never a concern. And to begin with, there wasn't even electricity, you know, during that time. People drink water from the well, or they drink water from pretty good source, you know, on the stream, you know, from streams that, you know, they know of, especially the emperor. But today, we drink water coming through the pipes that we don't even know where it came from, you know, whether the pipes are clean or not, and then what kind of energy that comes along the pipes. And we live in an environment that's heavily polluted. And we are applying what they call the classical theory in the modern living. So my question is, how much can be used today? What is valid today? You have so many formulas. If you look at the Sanher, which we look at forms, we call the form schools, that talks so much about all the different aspects of the theory on, you know, where do you find the river, where do you find the water that's coming into the house, where the exit, and you talk about, you know, where is the mountain that I can tap the energy from, and where's the dragon vein, and all sorts of, you know, information. But the thing here is, how much can we use now? Who has the luxury of living in a house where you have a great mountain and you can tap the source, and you have a nice body of water that you could actually use it to coagulate energy? Very few, especially if you're living in condominiums and apartments or in busy cities. So that brought me into thinking, you can apply any theory you want as a Feng Shui practitioner, but how much can you achieve? And so this is the part that I'm not fully satisfied with. You can do many, many things in the house. You can change the bed position, you can change the stove, you can change the sitting position of where the person work or study. You know, you can talk about the door and try to realign it, try to reposition it. You can look out on the windows and say that, okay, it's not exactly the best, you know, scene that I'm looking at, because there is, let's say, a power plant below, or there is this rubbish dump below. And what are you going to do? You can go to the management and say, please remove it. My Feng Shui master say it's bad for my health. So none of this thing, sometimes the client can get very, very stuck. And the last thing they want is when the Feng Shui master arrives and tell them there's just so many things that's negative in the house. It's just so easy to find fault in a house. It's so easy to find fault in a property. So if you can bring out all the fault and you can find fault with the property, my question is always, do you have a solution for it? The client pay you good fees to fix up the house, and then you go in and you only found problems, and then the solutions are limited because it's not recorded in the ancient classical text. Then what are you going to do? And you try to give logic, and what would be the best logic? You tell the client to move house. And yeah, that's what most Feng Shui master is doing. When the house is no good, the solution is move house, right? But then that's so unethical. Is that all you can say? You tell the client to move house? So I've always been wanting to look for solutions where we could actually overcome and allow the client to continue to live the same house and make the best on, you know, the alignment through Feng Shui. But at the same time, can we do something about it, you know, to get that person from a very difficult situation, the situation where the person is really suffering right now. And if I found out that it has got to do with the main door and the alignment itself is sitting, let's say, on a death and emptiness line. So the death and emptiness line here, we're talking about the 4 cardinal points and all the other subsections, you know. Like for example, in north itself, you're giving all the varying degrees, 45 degrees, you have 15 degrees in every section that it cuts, you know, and including the pure north, south, east, west. If the house is sitting on these degrees, you're sitting on the death and emptiness line. This is what is recorded, you know, in the text, and this is not supposed to be a good thing. The energy went into void. Basically, the family or the people who live in this house is never going to receive any great energy or auspicious energy. So when in the past, when someone has this problem, what a Feng Shui master would recommend is you tilt the door or you reposition or you angle the door. But the question here is, when a client is having financial problem, is already bleeding, how is the client ever going to spend a few $1,000s just to take the door down and get a carpenter to redo a frame in order for you to position it at a new degree? And sometimes the degree that is considered auspicious, it's a very wide degree and the whole door looks so slanted. It's just like a man with a crooked mouth. And that's going to be so ugly on a house. And moreover, the moment you do that, you have already violated the law of nature. It's not natural anymore. And when it's not natural anymore, how can then this Feng Shui be natural? How can we talk about redirecting energy, you know, in a natural way? Because the people who are living there no longer feel that, you know, this is normal, especially to the end consumer. And that's where I found biogeometry really interesting. You know, I just cannot help it. Each time when I go into any interviews on Feng Shui, I always end up talking about biogeometry, and then the whole article end up, you know, writing from the angle of biogeometry more than it talks about Feng Shui. It's just amazing what biogeometry could do. You know, in biogeometry, we know that, you know, as practitioners, we're all trained, you know, to work on virtual angles, you know, and how all these angles could bring us different qualities of energy.
Helen,
So it's Feng Shui. Yes.
When you speak to the masters in China, when you meet them and go to the lectures and teachings, what have they said when you ask them about the electromagnetic stress from that we live in, or like you said, the garbage dump? What are their suggestions? I mean, in BTB Feng Shui, we have many different cures, but I'm curious about classical Feng Shui with all this new technology we live in. What do the masters say?
For example, where EMF is concerned, they frankly, they do not have much solution to EMF. They don't discuss in a conference. They don't talk about EMF too. But if you talk about, let's say, a bad landscape, maybe a rubbish dump, a rubbish chute that the house is facing, they say shield it. You know, put a big plant and shield it, and that's it. You know, and you do not create an opening. If that happens to be a window, you close that window permanently, and you put a blind or you put a curtain there, and you kind of block it. So that's it. That's the only solution they have. They say if you cannot remove it, you shield it. That's all they have.
You know,
So
Helen.
Go ahead, Jean. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Olivia.
It's interesting because it goes off of you know, by putting the plant and not seeing the dump, it's also, you create the greenery and all that, but it's also what you're not seeing to bring that attention to in your subconscious way of living. So is that part of it, Helen? Do you think that's an aspect of it?
Yeah, that's what they always, you know, that's what they always proposed. I would say that's what they always propose. If you can't change the landscape, then if this interference is affecting you, the best solution to it is to block it, to shield it away. But I find that this is so in denial. Like, you know for a fact that it is still there. You know, when you walk down, you see it and it's still there. So how is that changing by just blocking it? So I'm not, that's why I can't buy that part, you know what I mean? I'm not into that part about just blocking it and say I didn't see it, so I'm okay. Okay, I mean, visually, aesthetically, I don't wake up and it's not on my face. I'm not immediately bombarded, but that doesn't remove the part that I'm already aware that it is there. You know what I mean? It's still affecting me. It's still annoying. You know, when you walk down, when you look at it, it's still annoying. So if there's smell, worse. So Feng Shui doesn't just talk about the landscape, right? We talk about the smell, we talk about pollution, we talk about, you know, the imbalances on the yin and yang, when it, you know, if it's too noisy, if there's bad smell, foul smell, and all that, these are part of it.
So generally with biogeometry and say the garbage dump, without giving away secrets, how can that be managed in a home or a space?
I have done that. I have done that through biogeometry. My brother recently bought an apartment, and his apartment was exactly sitting above a dump. You know, you know, I was thinking, you know, right? He thought he got a good deal. Like, you know, why was the price so cheap for that apartment? Until I went to balance the house and did Feng Shui plus biogeometry, I got a shock. I said, "Why did you buy a house? You know, the dumping ground is just below your house. What were you thinking?" And then he say, "Yeah, my wife made the decision. What can I say?" Oh my God. So that became the major aspect that I need to work on. And then all the generators, the power stations were just right below his house. So that's why I say biogeometry is amazing. You know, when you know biogeometry and you do your setup well, and then, you know, you pay attention to the rubbish dump downstairs, it's been great. I really walk into the dump to measure the dumps and you know, the dumping ground area. I've got very satisfying visually spinning everywhere, including the power station. So now, instead of sitting on a dump, I told him, "You're sitting on gold dump now. Everything turns into gold."
Helen, with your biogeometry solutions in the house, that's expanding out, projecting out to then harmonize also the areas around. So rather than our traditional feng shui of maybe adding that vitality of the plant to block the view and give some energy where that might be depleting outside, our biogeometry solutions allow the harmonization in the interior to expand out and reaches very far. Is that what you found?
Yes. So this is the thing. Like, I usually will look around what are the problems, you know, in the landscape before I even do a setup. So, you know, typically when a client, let's say a client engaged me and the client said, our primary objective is to get the feng shui right. The Asians being Asians, when they hire you, to them, right, biogeometry is something that they don't understand. It's still very new in Asia. So when you go to a client and say, "Come, let's do home balancing," and, you know, and strictly it's only biogeometry, they puzzled. They don't want. They think I'm crazy. They say, "What? You know, I hire a feng shui practitioner, and you tell me what is biogeometry?" So it was so difficult in the beginning, and I have to start from feng shui and then explain. I say, "What about your Wi-Fi? What about your router? You know, are you aware that there's just so many other aspects of your life that's not balanced?" You know, and then the clients start to think and say, "Oh, what about?" Then I have to show them the generators below the house. I have to show them the dumping grounds. I have to show them all the traffic and all the problems that's outside the house that's creating pollution, which is something Feng Shui can't do, can't fix. And I say, are you going to leave having a job that could be almost near perfection if we apply biogeometry into it and we amplify the whole effects of Feng Shui? Wouldn't it be great? So even if you have Feng Shui as your primary objective, and you subscribe to Feng Shui, and you think Feng Shui is fabulous and this is something that I only know, and why not add biogeometry into it and amplify the whole effect? And that's what Doria has always been encouraging. She said, well, the Feng Shui is well done. It should give you nice BG3, and if you apply biogeometry into it, it should amplify the whole thing by centering the qualities of what you're doing. So I like the idea that my work, whether I'm doing Feng Shui, whatever I'm doing, it carries centering qualities when I apply biogeometry techniques into it. And it's very satisfying.
Helen, I have a question for you. Right now,
Yes.
my wife and I are we've been considering downsizing, selling our house. So I've been looking at houses for a couple of years now, and I've been analyzing them in a Feng Shui way, and based on our Ka numbers. We're West group people. That means that our 4 directions are west and southwest, and then also the flying star. I'm always analyzing the front door, the living room, and the master bedroom. Looking for good stars there, and it's very difficult to find homes that have good Feng Shui. And I have found maybe 3 or 4 out of, let's say, 100 that really meet my criteria. Now, after learning biogeometry, I'm really so impressed with the changes in my life that, I've done my house, and my life has been changed really dramatically. Prior to that, I have Feng Shui. I have all the right water fountains in the right places. I have all the metal in the right places. And, I thought I was really enjoying a very nice life, a very beautiful life. I really loved it. But when I added the biogeometry, my life has even, gone up higher as far as my happiness and fulfillment in life. So I'm wondering if we can just maybe not even consider the Feng Shui aspects of a home and just see a house that you like and don't even worry about the facing direction or anything like that, and just apply biogeometry. And it would be, because there have been some homes that I really like everything about it, and but they're just wrong in the wrong point. It'll have a 5 at the front door, and the water star. No, you don't want that. So I'd like to hear your opinion. My opinion, I'm kind of thinking that I can just, like, when I move into a new home, I can just do all the biogeometry to it, and then I don't have to worry about the Feng Shui. What do you think?
Okay, Mary, the thing here is, you are right. You're right in certain ways. The thing about the West group, the East group, aspect, when we are trying to look into the Qua number, when we pick a house for, let's say, the owner, we call, usually the head of the family, who provides for the family. This has often been very conflicting. If you only base on Qua number to divide them into East and West group, then you're limiting what you can find. What if majority of the family members belong to East group, and then only the head of the family is a West group person? And some people, they didn't care. They say, oh, we just make sure that the head of the family is doing well, and because he's the provider. Well, that's not how Feng Shui works. The thing here is, if you are able to find a house by affinity that helps to, improve this aspect for the head of the family, that's fabulous. What if we go into 8 dimensions and we say, regardless of whether this is East or West house, we find a house, the energy key, which is the main door, and the facing itself has got a nice orientation, and the bedrooms are all placed in good sectors, you know, we said that regardless of your Qua number, if the Qua Chi of the house is in all the auspicious sector, anyone who live in this house will thrive.
Yeah.
And if your Qua number happen to have the affinity and it fit into whether it's an east house or a west house, we say that is called bonus.
Yeah.
Self brings greater merits. So this is one aspect. So I'm an East group person. I have lived in a West house and I thrived.
Okay. I've heard that. I've
For
heard
years.
that also.
Yeah. So if I go back to the East house, like I'm living in an East group house, I'm an East group person, I'm living in an East group house, right? So if you base on all this theory, you say, oh, fabulous, you know, Helen has got a Sun Chi door, you know, one of the best location for the door. And flying star wise, great flying stars, you know, we got all these factors in. My point here is, every year we have afflictions. We have afflictions going on every year. These afflictions are the flying stars that move around. You get your 5 yellow, you got 3 killings, you got your Tai Shui. All this that you have to watch out, regardless of what facing you belong to. They still have all these sectors that can give you trouble. So that's to say, Feng Shui acknowledge this aspect that energy fluctuates every year. And it fluctuates the moment the landscape changes. So I can find a great house that go in line with most of the Qua number in the house, but I can't control what's happening outside my house. If they decide to redivert the road and there's a road work going on, or my neighboring building has unblocked and they tear the building down, and I have to face this construction site for the next few years, these are disturbances. So of course I have a choice. I have a choice to move out temporarily to find a better environment. But what if I don't have that luxury? I have to live in this noisy environment and put up with all these changes around me. This is the thing. This is the thing that is most frustrating, because when it comes to this part, Feng Shui can't fix it. Feng Shui can't give you a perfect solution to say, I give you this bumper, regardless of what is invading you, it's shooting at you, that we call the Shachi that's shooting at you, you have this nice bouncy thing that will just bounce it away. It's not going to happen that way. So this is where I found biogeometry comes in and solve all these issues perfectly. And this is what happened to me and what made me move house. I was living in a previous apartment, and that place, they were going through this upgrading. I woke up one morning with all the drillings going on around me. Everything was going crazy. My whole house was vibrating. My pots and pans were vibrating. So who cares whether you have the best Feng Shui setting or not? Everything in the house is vibrating. But you know, what was so amusing and amazing, it was drilling like crazy. Pots and pans were making noise and clanking. But you know, when I measured it, it was vibrating with BG3. So this was the funniest thing. I don't know what to say, but it's so funny. In Feng Shui, we can never say with all this kind of vibration, and you can say it's great. You say, oh, it caused me mental disturbance. I can't sleep well. This is so annoying. So I got so frustrated. I decided to, maybe I should tweak a few things. I should nudge a few things. But first, let me measure if I could find BG3 in this whole thing. The whole house was vibrating crazily with BG3. So now the tools that I have installed, you know, has got itself amplified. You see? So this is the most amusing part and amazing part, which
I have another
I find it through Feng Shui, you see?
I have another question. Talking about flying star, and let's say for a certain year you have a bad star comes in at your front door.
Yeah.
Would you consider just going with a biogeometry solution and not even worry about the feng shui?
Yes, I have done it for the last few years. I'm no longer use the Feng Shui cures to mitigate the afflictions of the year anymore.
Yes.
No need.
Wow.
No need.
So
No need. I have so many tools to play
Feng
with.
Shui.
And it's exciting when they arrive because I will moving with my tools. It's just only a body of energy. Honestly speaking, where Feng Shui is concerned, what are we talking about? We're talking about body of energy. And we're talking about body of energy. Biogeometry is also talking about a body of energy, but we use more of that term when we say vibration. And so is Feng Shui. We're looking at different qualities of vibration, whether they're wholesome vibrations or unwholesome vibrations. So if I bring up my awareness and say, oh, the 5 yellow is in the east this year, and I happen to have a window there, fantastic. I have biogeometry. You know, instead of having to worry that I have to put some Feng Shui cures that can look not pleasant or not pretty inside or aesthetic, I now have biogeometry. I have so many choices. I have angles to play with, I have the L's to play with, I have the dials to play with, I have the stand to play with. I just fix it and change the
Helen,
entire
Helen,
vibration.
I have a question on that. Oh, we're
Yes.
both asking.
Yes.
But still on the flying star. So if the Shachi is coming in 1 year and you put biogeometry cures and it rotates the next year as it does every year, do you
Yes.
have to remove those cures and readjust?
Actually, not necessary. Not necessary. The beauty about biogeometry is it is multidimensional. So the thing here is, how much is it affecting you? When I say I need to put a cure, I also look into my landscape. If the landscape did not present itself with a Sachi, for example, this year the 5 is in the east, you know, which is supposed to be the most notorious body of energy. So you do want to be very careful with it. Well, if I looked up at the east and I see there's a construction site, or I see something, you know, like all the antennas and the rooftops are all pointing towards my window, then that's geometrical shifts. As far as biogeometry is concerned, but in Feng Shui, we say, look, these are all the Sachi, you know, it immediately activate your number 5. You talk to any practitioner who looked at it and say, oh my God, your number 5 is activated. Good luck to you, you know. So I'm never worried. I say, okay, geometrical shape, I have a solution for it. And that's it. And the point here is, if this is the landscape, I don't care whether the yearly affliction is here or not here. For the fact that these are already my disturbances, I have to balance it, regardless, whether it's a yearly affliction or not. So when a year has passed, the affliction is no longer there. The question is, will I remove it? No, I'll still leave it there. And then come another time, you know, the energy shifted. This year, let's say the negative energy, the signal star is actually in the south. So my south, I have a rubbish chute within my apartment in the south. So that's no good. All the unwholesome energy is there. And what am I going to do? Every day I'm opening the rubbish chute to throw the rubbish in. I'm activating it. And that's my health and my family's health. So what are you going to do? The Feng Shui term, typically, what do? They either put the hulu, or they put something there, you know, they prescribe stuff like that, or they put something to weaken the earth energy. Yeah, put some metal elements to weaken the earth energy. So the question here is, to what extent are you weakening it? To what extent? We don't know. We don't know until we fall sick, or if we don't fall sick, then we know.
Yeah, right.
Right? So I'm not going to take the chance, no, because I'm not going to say whatever cures I've learned, I put it there, and then come certain months, it's being amplified because let's say a number 5 come in and join a number 2, that's it, and then my health has not been, let's say, fantastic. Let's say I've overworked myself. Who will be the one in the family that's falling sick? It has to be me. But if I don't want to fall sick, I don't want anyone in this family to fall sick, then I am not giving it a chance. I'm going to balance it and turn my rubbish dump into a golden dump that doesn't affect me in any aspect, and that includes my entire family. So when I do a treatment there, I measure the environment, I measure myself, and I get a chance to measure my family members, everyone is great.
So Helen, would you say that which is more important, the mouth of chi, making sure that's corrected, or the harmonization of the building itself, which spreads out and possibly corrects all your exterior problems, like landforms and things like that? What has your experience been with topographical issues which affect the chi coming into the mouth of chi or the front door? How does biogeometry, have you used that to correct some of those exterior elements that might be affecting how the chi enters?
Yeah.
With
So as
biogeometry.
like I mentioned earlier, whenever I do a job, my first observation is always my external landscape. Because if my external landscape does not give me, from a Feng Shui perspective, does not give me a nice landscape, and of course, from biogeometry perspective, it's also a bad landscape because it's causing disturbance. The geometrical shapes, the rooftop, the antennas, the design of the building itself, the materials or whatsoever you name it, that's causing disturbance. These are all my primary criteria when I do up a house. This will be my first initial observation. So whatever setup that I am doing within the house will always be measured against my external environment. It is two-way, and I pay extra attention to the chi mount, like you say, like the door, like the windows, and where I am, bringing the energy in, or where I'm redirecting the energy. I pay extra attention. So let's say typically, I do up a house. When I have all these landscape in mind, I look into the landscape, I measure the landscape, I have an idea whether the solution that I'm applying is correcting the landscape itself. I take them down. So usually when I measure the door again, or correct the door, or allow the maximum BG3 to come through the door, whatever solution I've done, I take it down so there's no interference, go to the door, and I bring up the BG3 lever before I put back all my tools again. So just the door itself, the door is always corrected with no other interference of BG3 in that sense. So by the time you put back the rest of the tools, when you up the BG3, everything gets amplified many times. It gets amplified so many times. When I measure the radius from where I am now, I easily have 3 kilometers in radius that's balanced on a Google map.
Helen, I have a theory about how biogeometry and Feng Shui interact, and I'd like to mention that to get your feedback on that. In Flying Star Feng Shui, there's the 9 numbers. They're part of the 5 elements, and depending on the cycle of time, an element. Let's say the number 2 is the illness star. Well, let's say in the period of 2, that illness star actually has some positive qualities to it.
Yes. Yes.
And my theory is that adding biogeometry to a space will take all the stars and add that positive quality to every star that's present in your home. It elevates the chi. It changes the nature of the chi from bad chi to good chi on all cases. So number 2, the star, which is really bad, an illness star, if you apply biogeometry to that area or to your home, that number 2 star, the bad effects of the 2 would be erased. The good effects of the 2 would be amplified. That's my theory.
So your question is, when you apply biogeometry to let's say the number 2, which is supposed to be a unwholesome energy for this current period, because we're in period 8 now. So in period 8, when you look at a signal star number 2, it is very negative because it's something that is very bad for your health. But by applying biogeometry to it, you will not amplify the bad qualities of it. You will not. But the thing here is, will you actually bring out the good nature of it?
Yes,
the good nature of number 2 like in the period 2.
that's what I'm
I
saying.
don't know. I've yet to experience. So let me get through this year. By the end of this year, I'll let you know. Did I benefit from the good aspect of number 2, which is about property, which is about fertility, which is about all this other aspect. So I'll let you know by the end of the year
Right.
if I have any of those criteria that was awesome, that I was enjoying. Yeah,
Thank you.
most welcome.
Helen, have you found that the science behind biogeometry has been helpful in explaining to your Feng Shui clients why certain adjustments or cures work? From the BTB school, biogeometry supports the adjustments that we do because we use a lot of angles, and that's been helpful in explaining to my clients why this actually works. When we're saying use a certain color here, maybe it's being projected into the room, being able to explain about frequencies. I find with my Western clients, it's been helpful for them to understand a little bit more why Feng Shui actually works.
So you say you're saying that you use the biogeometry theory as the science aspect to explain like example colors to your clients for Feng Shui?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
In our school, in biogeometry, we know certain areas can project energy, and I found that it supported some of the cures used in the BTV school for solutions for rooms. There's the science behind it was explaining the frequencies, and that's why these cures work. So I don't know your school, so I'm not sure if they correspond the types of cures that you use, but
okay, give me an example. Give me an example of the cure that you use and how you have explained that using biogeometry.
From my school, it's difficult for me to give a specific cure without an exchange of red envelopes. That's part of our tradition because it's considered sacred information. But you do know how in biogeometry you use a corner stand tool in biogeometry, how that's used. In our school of Feng Shui, there could be a particular problem, and we also will utilize a corner to project energy. So that's maybe an example, and a particular color might be used there, and that has a certain frequency. And so I was able to be supportive of my cures with biogeometry science. So that's one of the reasons that I really enjoyed learning biogeometry, was it actually provided these traditions from thousands of years being passed down, why they actually worked, because the people back then sensed the energy and it was a frequency. And that's really all we're dealing with. So I love it that science and our Feng Shui traditions are merging now. It's really wonderful. So I'm not sure for your school, but for mine, it's been helpful in explaining to my clients why this actually works, and gives me also an option of another tool besides a traditional Feng Shui adjustment tool, something that's maybe less obvious, which in coming from a design background as you are, that's often important. If you have a beam or something like that, that's that would be a good example. A beam is a structural disturbance that we can measure in biogeometry, and there's a traditional Feng Shui cure for that. And in biogeometry, we have a less obvious cure for that, for a structural disturbance. So that might be a good example.
Yeah. This is something which I let's say from the Feng Shui perspective, most clients will know. When they read books, they say, oh, I was told, I read books that say, beams running across the house is no good, or I'm sleeping under a beam or sitting under the beam is no good. So essentially what Feng Shui explained, when you have a beam there, what the beam is doing is actually cutting through into the energy. It's creating a barrier. Energy is not flowing through smoothly. So where there is a barrier, that's where energy stagnates, or that's where energy stops. And that's why it's no good. And we say, okay, it is no good. What do? You move out of the beam. You don't stick under the beam, or you stay away from the beam, or we do something to balance it. So as an interior designer, I will create some other cornices. I will put in maybe a frost ceiling, or put in something else to kind of balance it so that the beam is no longer obvious. It doesn't cause that disturbance to the system, to the person from the Feng Shui perspective. So now we say in modern design, you get people who enjoy having the beams exposed, especially when they do industrial design. And we're going to do, and you look at it and say, oh my God, from Feng Shui perspective, it's no good. From biogeometry perspective, it's also no good. But then the client say, don't camouflage it because I want the beam. It looks really raw and nice. But then it's a great thing. I'm a biogeometry practitioner, I can do something else to balance the beam. And as a practitioner, we know we only need what? We only put in a disc and finish. I can hide it anywhere. And no one knows. I've already balanced the beam without having to camouflage the beam. Yeah, and that's the beauty.
One thing about biogeometry that explains something for me, like in Chinese metaphysics, the element fire can be represented by the color red or a triangle or those types of things. And that really resonated because if you think about the physics of quality, when you go to higher levels of where your senses don't kick in, your senses, you're in a non-physical level, all these things become the same thing. So the color red and a triangle are the exact same thing. So that's one thing that explained to me why Feng Shui is the way it is, because it works on those same levels, those non-physical levels, not where you can't sense these things and they just become these representations for that.
Yeah.
So that I found that very interesting.
Yeah, that's something which I enjoy very much, because the geometrical shapes that we talk about in Feng Shui, like, the triangle is fire, and if you want to introduce more matter, it's all round shapes. Anything that's earth, to put in the square shapes and stuff like that. So, I've designed houses purely basing on geometrical shapes, just to create or to increase the elements on the energy aspect through Feng Shui. And it's worked out very well. Strictly with colors, strictly with geometrical shapes. I've done projects like that. And it's very fun and interesting, and the client loves it. Until today, we're still enjoying the environment very much. So, like houses like that, in the past projects, I wish at that time I have learned biogeometry, and I could make it even more fun, on the aesthetic aspect. Yeah.
What I've learned from this discussion today is that I know very little about Feng Shui, but I'm so glad I know biogeometry. That's what, it seems like the best replacement for Feng Shui that I could probably hook onto without knowing Feng Shui.
Yes. Yes.
I also want to add that, being a consumer, someone who is interested in Feng Shui, and bringing a couple of Feng Shui practitioners to my home, and I remember they highlighted all the negative aspect of my home. So by the time they were done, I was like, oh my God, I got to move out. I can't live in this house, and so that's what I felt most imbalanced with, as a consumer when I approach something like Feng Shui. But when I learned biogeometry, and like, for example, I live in a house that has very low ceiling. I think it's only 8 feet. It's not very high ceiling. But once I implemented the biogeometry solution with a lot of BG3 in the home, it's like I felt like the ceiling gone taller. And I even, it was interesting, at that time, my ex-husband and the kids, I had done the work with others. And then when they came in, they're like, wow, the house feels bigger. So it was this perception. And one of the things I also know, and I'm so glad you brought this, because one thing I loved about biogeometry is when you notice something that's negative or detrimental and your eyes just focus on it, but once you create the BG3, it's like you don't even focus on that anymore. And I think that's such a beautiful aspect of bringing BG3 into this work, and also receiving this work as a consumer for with Feng Shui. So yeah, I think it's about an hour now, right, Larry?
Yeah, I think we've had a great discussion, actually. I want to thank all our listeners who've tuned in, and I want to thank everybody here this morning. I think this has been a great contribution to biogeometry knowledge, general knowledge, and I think it's meeting our goal of developing community and having people interact and share their expertise. And I really thank you all for being here today. And keep checking back here on our channel. There'll be more opportunities for you to meet more biogeometers, and looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.